Every NFL fan has some favorite players. Whether they're the best player on your team, a great person off the field, or just someone that's fun to watch, everyone has a few players they love. But what about the players that don't get enough love? Pretty much every team has a few key contributors that always seem to fly under the radar for one reason or another. Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. I've gone ahead and compiled a list of one player on every team that I feel is underrated. And we're talking about all kinds of players today, from QBs to nose guards and rotational pieces to Pro Bowlers. A player's skill level doesn't really matter for this list. These are just some guys I think deserve a little more recognition. So go ahead and drop a like and subscribe for more NFL content, and let's get into it. Starting off with the Bears, we have Jaylon Johnson, a name Bears fans know very well, but doesn't seem to get talked about outside of that, which is a shame considering he's one of the better young corners in the game right now. His athletic traits won't blow you away, but he showcases good technique and ability to squeeze on routes in man coverage. He had several strong reps against A.J. Brown in their meeting against Philly last season. He's always been a good starter, but he seems to be taking a step forward now under Matt Eberflus. Combined with Jaquan Brisker and second-round rookie Tyreek Stevenson pushing Kyler Gordon into the slot, Jaylon Johnson is looking to be a cornerstone of a promising young Bears secondary. Moving on to the Lions, we've got defensive tackle Alim McNeill. A third-round pick in 2021, McNeill has yet to put up big numbers, but he's had some impressive flashes on tape. Now looking at him in his 6'2", 315-pound frame, you would think he's just a nose tackle, but I would argue he's actually shown more as a pass rusher to this point. He's got a rare combination of power and burst, and he actually gets a lot of reps as a 3-tech. If he can just polish up his rush moves a bit, he could be in for a breakout season on the Lions defense that's lacking a lot of star talent. Now pivoting from a promising player to an already great player, we have the Vikings with Christian Darrisaw. Darrisaw really broke out last year, becoming one of the league's best left tackles. He's got a great anchor and ability to mirror rushers. He's definitely one of the best players on this list, but unfortunately he's gotten injured in both of his seasons as a pro. Maybe that's why I hardly hear him mentioned among the league's best tackles. Or maybe I'm just not tapped in like that, I don't know. But regardless, linemen could always use some extra love. And now for the Packers rep, we have to move all the way over here to Rashawn Gary. Now here's another player who's among the best at their position, but doesn't seem to get the recognition from fans. He's arguably a top 5 edge rusher in the league, yet I often see him missing off of lists of the top 10. I'm assuming that's because he hasn't racked up crazy sack totals, but the tape speaks for itself on this one. He's got incredible size and length, and a terrifyingly effective bull rush. Maybe this is the year he finally gets the recognition he deserves, but I don't exactly trust Joe Barry to get the most out of him. But that's a story for another day. Now moving on to the NFC East, and man, you guys have no idea how badly I wanted to put Dak on this list. But at the end of the day, I think most people recognize he's still a good quarterback. So our actual Cowboys rep is going to be part of the league's deepest safety room, Donovan Wilson. A 6th round pick in the 2019 draft, he was originally just a guy who hits hard. But since then, he's evolved his game into a sort of do-it-all safety for the Cowboys. He's still heavily employed as a thumper in the box, but he can also play deep zones and man up on tight ends. He's one of the more versatile pieces of the secondary, and he tends to rack up a ton of tackles because of it. Oh, and don't worry, he can still hit hard. Now everyone knows the Eagles have an elite offensive line, and everyone knows Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson are a huge part of that. Even Jordan Mailata is pretty well known at this point. But the one returning starter that never seems to get talked about is Landon Dickerson. Towering at 6'6", 330 pounds, you could probably guess that this guy's pretty strong. but strength alone isn't enough to succeed in the NFL. Luckily, he also shows good awareness, core mobility, and hand placement. He often succeeds at shooting his hands inside, and when a guy like this gets his hands in your chest, you may as well give up on the rep. His size, strength, and awareness also make him a mauler in the run game, and he's a huge reason for the Eagles' success on the ground. Also, since we're talking about running, quick shout out to Kenneth Gainwell, who is easily the most underrated player in their backfield. But anyway, we've got another NFC East safety next up with Jason Pinnock on the Giants. He was a 5th round draft pick in 2021 by the Jets actually, but he was waived after just 1 season with the team, so their MetLife buddies decided to claim him. He only started 5 games for the G-Men, but he made an impact all over the box score, racking up TFLs, forced fumbles, PBUs, and even 1.5 sacks. Now after a full offseason with the team, he's looking to make a name for himself on one of the league's up-and-coming defenses. He's far from perfect, but he's a solid starting safety on a surging secondary. Next up, we have the Commanders with Sam Cosmi. A 2nd round pick out of Texas in the 2021 draft, Cosmi quickly emerged as a promising starting tackle for the Commanders. He stays patient in his drops, and he's shown a great ability to mirror rushers off the edge. He also has a relentless motor and gets after it in the run game. He's moving into guard this year, but with his rapid ascension and reportedly great work ethic, I have no doubts he'll be able to smoothly make the transition. Moving into the NFC South, we have the Falcons with their star tight end Kyle Pitts. I never thought we would have made it to this point a year ago, but here we are. After a disappointing sophomore season, people are all of a sudden down on Kyle Pitts, seemingly forgetting that he had 1,000 yards as a rookie. Mind you, the only other rookie tight end to ever do that was Mike Ditka in 1961. Color TV was less than a decade old at that point. And yet after a down year in the league's most run-heavy offense with Marcus Mariota as his QB for most of the year, I've seen people wonder if he's a bust. So I guess I should just say now, no, the 6'6" tight end with amazing hands who ran a 4.44 40 is not a bust. It's not even like he played bad last season, he just didn't put up big numbers. I mean, it's not often you see teams manning up their number 1 corner on a tight end, let alone bracketing him. So I can't believe we've gotten to this point, but apparently now Kyle Pitts is underrated. Now on a less heated note, we've got every Panthers fan's favorite linebacker, Frankie Louvu. After signing with the Jets as a UDFA in 2018, he never really made a huge impact before signing with the Panthers in 2021. He was still mainly a backup and special teamer in his first year with the team, but in 2022 he completely broke out, racking up over 100 tackles, 7 sacks, 4 PBUs, and a pick 6. He's a real do-it-all linebacker for Carolina, playing everywhere from lined up over the A-gap to off-ball linebacker to rushing off the edge. He's got great instincts and plays like his hair's on fire. Just look at a few of his highlights, and it's easy to see why Panthers fans are expecting big things from Louvu this year. Next up we have the Saints, and I'm going with Rashid Shaheed. He signed as a UDFA last year and worked his way up from a return specialist to a genuine contributor on offense. His most obvious strength is his blazing speed. He'll run right by any flat-footed DB. He actually shows good ball tracking skills too to locate the ball on deep throws. The Saints have a pretty deep receiver room now when healthy, especially with rookie A.T. Perry added to the fray, but look for Shaheed to cement himself as a starting receiver in the league this year. Now the Buccaneers' most underrated player is actually one of their newest additions. Ryan Neal had a breakout season for the Seahawks last year, stepping up to replace the injured Jamal Adams. He now heads to Tampa Bay to form what could be one of the league's better safety tandems. Neal's good at diagnosing plays and shows great pursuit to the ball. He's a willing run defender, but he also shows good coverage instincts as well. Now, he was no Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor, but he should make a valuable addition to the Bucs defense. Now for the Cardinals, we have the most disrespected player on this list with Kyler Murray. All the Call of Duty jokes have tricked people into thinking he's not a good quarterback. It's just so weird to me that a 26-year-old QB who won Rookie of the Year and is a 2-time Pro Bowler seems to get no love from fans. He's never had a great O-line, he's never had a great, consistent, healthy receiving core, and he's never had a great head coach, and yet he still produces year in and year out. Yeah, last year was probably the worst year of his career, but he was also on one of the worst teams in the league and barely got to play with his #1 receiver. We're talking about a former MVP candidate who has a strong arm, incredible athleticism, he's a great improviser, and has one of the best deep balls in the league, and yet seems to get no respect from fans. He's a top 12 QB who's treated like a bottom 12 QB, and it just doesn't make sense to me. We talked about a player who just left the Seahawks, and now it's time to talk about a player who's joining the Seahawks, in Dre'Mont Jones. Jones was a big part of the Broncos front last year, punishing quarterbacks from the interior, and Seattle rewarded him with a $51 million contract. He can be an every down defender, but he's a real threat on third down when he can get after the quarterback. He has active hands and he's remarkably quick, which allows him to get past blockers in a hurry. He boasts an effective swim move and he's relentless in pursuit, which allows him to track down mobile QBs too. Jones looks to bolster a Seahawks line that's been searching for some impact defenders. But also shout out Tyler Lockett, who's been underrated for pretty much his entire career. Run blocking is paramount in any Kyle Shanahan offense, and Aaron Banks was a key piece of the puzzle for the Niners last year in that regard. Banks loves to get after it in the run game, get into his landmarks in a hurry, and often climb into the second level on zone runs. He's also great at using his size to wall off defenders. He's also got good awareness in pass protection and shows a solid anchor if defenders try to go through him. I've definitely got some questions about this Niners O-line, but I'm not concerned about the left side. Next up is the Rams, and I'm going with Van Jefferson. Jefferson's been a solid contributor for a while now, as he's just a pretty well-rounded receiver. He's a solid route runner, he's got good hands, and he's a damn good run blocker. He also shows good awareness on things like stemming his routes and settling between zones. I definitely wouldn't call him a #1 receiver, but he should be a solid piece on a Rams team that needs all the help they can get. Now moving on to the AFC, we have the Browns' newly signed safety, Juan Thornhill. Thornhill's been a contributor in the Chiefs secondary for several years now. He's had to play a lot of deep half zones, and he's generally done a damn good job of it. He's also perfectly capable of covering the slot, and he's handled tons of rotating coverages. And you know, since he came from the Chiefs, he's had to handle tons of high-stakes situations. Overall, Thornhill should make an impact covering the back half of that Browns defense. Moving on to the Bengals, we've got their second-year corner out of Nebraska, Cam Taylor-Britt. He really came on down the stretch for the Bengals last year, and he's in line for a huge role this year as their #2 corner. He really impressed me in man coverage, playing physical in press and patient in off man. He also showed surprisingly good awareness and discipline for a rookie, knowing when to pass off routes and not giving up separation at the top of his breaks. Last year he was an impressive rookie, but this year I think he's one of the league's top breakout candidates. Moving on to the Ravens, we have their interior defensive lineman Justin Madubuike. I think you can make an argument Madubuike was their best pass rusher last year. He's got fantastic burst to quickly get into linemen's pads, and he's got great hand usage to continue working to the QB. And like a lot of other D linemen we've talked about so far, he has a relentless motor to chase down QBs and ball carriers. I think the Ravens' defense as a whole is a bit underrated, and Madubuike's contributions are a big part of that opinion. Now I'm gonna be honest, picking an underrated player on the Steelers was actually pretty difficult. I think most fans actually have a pretty good idea of how good their players are. But I gotta pick somebody, so we'll go ahead and give Cole Holcomb some love. Holcomb's really been impressing from day one, as he was a 5th round pick who started all 4 years of his rookie contract. He's also kind of an old school middle linebacker in terms of a guy with a big frame who can really do a little bit of everything. He's a great run defender, but he's also good in coverage, and he's actually a dangerous blitzer. He signed a 3-year, $18 million contract in Pittsburgh, and he's worth every penny. Honestly, he might be worth a little more. Stepping into the AFC East, we're kicking things off with the Bills and Taron Johnson, who's arguably the best slot corner in the league. Slot corner is already one of the most underrated positions in the league, so it's really no surprise Johnson made this list. The Bills really task him with a bit of everything, and he's able to thrive at it thanks to his great play recognition. He's sticky in coverage, and despite what you might expect from a corner, he's actually good in run defense. He's really one of the smarter players on that defense, and he even gets some run as sort of a sub linebacker. And I know I introduced him as a slot corner, but he can play outside too. He's just a great all-around defender and an invaluable piece on that secondary. Now moving from one underrated corner to another, we got the Jets with DJ Reed. Everyone knows Sauce was elite last year, but he actually wasn't the only top 10 corner on that defense. He kinda got overshadowed by the Defensive Rookie of the Year, but DJ Reed would have been the best corner on most teams in the league last year. He's extremely disciplined, keeping his eyes glued to the receiver's hips in man coverage and always maintaining a feel for them in zone. He also has great route anticipation, helping him snap down at the top of their breaks. He also stays patient in off coverage and knows when to snap his head around when the ball's in the air. He's just a great overall corner who doesn't get a ton of recognition because he's not Sauce Gardner. You know what, fuck it, let's get one more corner in here with Kader Kohou from the Dolphins. It's pretty rare for a UDFA to start as a rookie. It's especially rare for a UDFA out of Texas A&M Commerce to start on a playoff team as a rookie. But as you should be able to tell by now, Kohou did just that. He's predominantly a slot corner, but he also had to play a lot outside last year, and he honestly impressed in both roles. He was a lot more disciplined than you would expect from a rookie. Although he can be a bit slow to react on breaks, he generally does a good job of crashing down and forcing difficult throws. If Xavier Howard can bounce back from his performance last year, and factoring in the addition of Cam Smith in the 2nd round of the draft, this secondary could be dangerous even before Ramsey gets back. Oh, and real quick, also shout out Connor Williams, one of the league's most underrated centers. Rounding out the division, we got Christian Barmore for the Patriots. The Patriots traded up in the 2nd round of the 2021 draft to select Barmore, and he's had an up and down start to his career so far. When healthy, he's shown the makings of the next great Bama interior rusher. The problem for him has been staying healthy. He's battled injuries on and off both of his years in the league, and he missed 7 games last year. So time will tell if he's ever able to put together a full healthy season, but if he can, he looks to be a force on the interior for years to come. And now for the AFC South, we got the Colts kicking things off with their 2nd-year receiver, Alec Pierce. Honestly, I would say Pierce was pretty underrated by his own coaching staff last year. Standing at 6'3", 211 and running a 4.4 with a 40-inch vertical, Pierce is an athlete. As you might have guessed from that profile, he's primarily a deep threat. He runs good routes downfield and he's got great hands to get up and attack the football. Plus, 6'3" with a 40-inch vert, that helps too. He's got the awareness, skills, and athletic profile to be a long-term starter for Indy, and now he actually has a QB with the talent to take advantage of it. Believe it or not, we've got another top 10 corner on this list with Tyson Campbell on the Jags. He was the 33rd overall pick in 2021, so he was basically a first rounder, and that pick has already paid off. At 6'1" with 32-inch arms, he's got the length defensive coordinators dream about. He's fantastic in man coverage, always staying glued to his receiver, and he has some of the best route anticipation in the league. His length also allows him to thrive playing underneath and invading quarterbacks. Similar to Reed, Campbell's a great corner that I believe just doesn't get talked about enough. Moving on to the Titans, we have one of the most underrated players at the most underrated role in the league. I'm talking about their nose guard, Teair Tart. Tart is the anchor of that Titans front, and he is invaluable to their run defense. He's also literally the anchor of that front, because once he drops his hips, you ain't moving him. He's great at taking on double teams, which frees up everyone else to be able to shoot their gaps. Tart is a big reason you'll never have an easy time going against the Titans defense, regardless of who they line up. Now we pivot from a nose guard to a penetrating 3-tech with the Texans' Malik Collins. Collins has actually been underrated for a while now in my opinion, going back to his time in Dallas. He's far from a superstar, but he's good in his role as a primarily pass rushing 3-tech. He's a high motor player with some impressive finesse moves. He's got strong active hands and he's good at swiping away punches. He'll even throw in a little spin move every now and then. He probably won't be racking up double-digit sacks anytime soon, but he's a valuable pass rusher nonetheless. Wrapping up the divisions with the AFC West, we've got Chiefs corner Jalen Watson. Watson was a 7th round pick out of Washington State last year and played way better than any 7th round corner has any right to. I mean, how many 7th round rookies do you know are heavy contributors in the Super Bowl? He's a physical press man corner who's good at disrupting receivers at the line. I wouldn't call him a number 1 corner though. He does tend to give up some route separation, and I have some questions about his zone feel. But he does have the confidence, physicality, and ball skills you love to see from a corner. If he could play that good as a rookie, there's no telling what the future could have in store for him. Next up for the Chargers, we got Michael Davis, another cornerback. Davis originally signed with the Chargers as a UDFA back in 2017 and has stuck around with the team ever since. 2022 was his best season yet, racking up 15 pass breakups. That was tied for 6th in the league. That wasn't just a fluke either, he was routinely matched up against teams' number 1 receivers down the stretch. In fact, I would argue he was actually better than Asante Samuel in their playoff game. He does a great job of mirroring receivers and attacking the ball in the air. He also does a good job of rerouting receivers and press. If he can build on what he did last year, he could play a big role in saving Staley's job this year. You're never gonna guess what position's next. Representing the Raiders, we have cornerback, Amik Robertson. The Raiders' secondary last year was pretty much entirely made of unheralded names, and Robertson's certainly one of them. He only started 7 games last year, but he finished the season with 9 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. His size at just 5'8" kinda typecast him into the slot, but he can play off coverage outside. He's entering the last year of his contract and he barely made the roster this season, so we'll see how long he sticks around in Vegas, but based on what we saw last year, I think the best is yet to come for him. He generally stays disciplined in coverage, and he's good at breaking from off man too. I think Robertson has a long career ahead of him. And last but not least, rounding us out, we have Broncos linebacker Josey Jewell. It was honestly pretty hard to pick a rep for the Broncos because half the starters on their defense are underrated in my eyes, but I eventually settled on their 6th-year linebacker out of Iowa. I think Jewell's biggest strength is his play diagnosis, which, luckily for the Broncos, is one of the most vital skills for a linebacker. He's a real general for that defense, which is why he wears the green dot. His impact is felt in all facets of the game too, as he racked up 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 7 TFLs in 13 games. With a new coaching staff hopefully making the Broncos a more interesting team this season, maybe Joel will get some extra recognition too. And that's it. That's the list. What did you guys think? Did you learn about some new players today? You think I'm too high on any of these guys? Let me know. Were there way too many corners on the list? Let me know. Also, let me know in the comments who you think your team's most underrated player is. I'd love to read all your answers. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, you have to like and comment. I don't make the rules, I'm sorry, that's just how it works. But anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.